Alors, bonsoir tout le monde.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Standing Committee on Public Policies and Strategies. A meeting that is held on the third Monday of each month. If someone would require simultaneous interpretation, please get a headset in the back of the room.
In the hall requires translation devices. They are available at the back of the room. Alors, sans plus tarder,
So, without any further delay, on October the 20th, we're happy to receive all the members of the board of director of the Quebec Arts Center. Mr. Grandmaison, good evening. Welcome. I'll put your mic on. Maybe it will work better. There. Thank you very much. I'm here with Robert Frenette, Vice President, and Luc, the Executive Director, and Donna Poirier, Director of Finance. And also members of our CEO, Monsieur Paré, Pauline Cormier, and another one whose name I didn't hear. Thank you for granting us this time. We wanted to have an opportunity to present you where we're going and to make a follow up to the requests we sent to Mr. Malborg. We want to deal quickly with the highlights of what we did in the past. You've received probably a copy of these, and some may have seen it. I will just bring out some headlines without going into any details. That can be done at another time. Following this annual meeting, we put a team together. We established a strategic plan followed by a budget which will help us to execute the strategic plan. All of this brings us to make the request that we uh, give you through Raymond Burke. If you will, let's go through the highlight of the annual meeting. I know it's written small character, but our center is 4 years old. It's a startup like any company. We have growing pains. There are things that we have learned as we went along, and after 4 years, we have a better idea of where we're going, the environment in which we operate, and all the strength, the weaknesses, and the restraint that we have. Now, after 4 years, we have very well structured, and Luke and I are having discussion as to where we're going financially. We have a better control on our budget as we go along. The activities that we have planned show a good volume that increase every year within the activities that we have. You'll see a few figures later on. And the highlights to mention the board of directors. There was a support to the executive director. Now that we have a very good executive director, that board of director does not operate anymore. If not, when it's mandated by the board of directors to organize activities or specific events. When we had assigned renew the contract with Luc, well, at that time the board of directors came together. Otherwise, Luc manages and he reports directly to the board of directors. We've put together a group of committees that will support Luke. We have a finance committee, strategic planning, and a program committee. To these committees are added the people from the city or outside the private sector to support us in our undertaking. So we've given us a better governance, a better way of operating, where we see some good results as we go along. We also say that we have to innovate, and we also know that the the center, the art center, that is, we have to go to the next steps. Now that we have 4 years behind us, we have a better governance. We want to give the center, bring the center closer to the population and be a better tool, more effective for the population and the city of Dieppe. In the last year, the fiscal year that just completed, we started the year with a deficit of $23,905. Nevertheless, in the last finance fiscal year that ended on March the 31st, 2014, we had a surplus of $10,000 for 10,435. That's on page 6 if you want to refer to your document. It did allow us to deficit our accumulated deficit. We have to realize that $10,435 for the way we went about to get that surplus, we reduced the expenditures. We we were able to balance the boat, but what we are unable to do is to be more progressive and to develop more at the level we'd like to do it or the way it should be done. Just the number of exhibits. I won't go through the number of artists. We've had 5 artists in residence. We've had several shows, plus the 26 shows that were organized this year. Are already planning 7 shows that we are planning. We will be the broadcasters along with all the others this summer. We've had 4 weeks of dances, 1 week of visual arts, and other activities. The program Gold for All was held last year, and I know that the city is already giving a subsidy, but it allowed us to have 3,800 children that came through the doors, and they were able to have activities organized in the center. I'll bring you to page 12. Partnership. We've had several partnership, and more we talk about the Festival of Circus, the Harvest Festival, Acadie Quebec, Expansion Dieppe, School Hubcap. You see that we have activities that are established in a partnership in the community. On page 12, this shows what we've had as far as reception in house, but also it shows that we're organized. Sometimes it can be rental over and above what we have. We had 36 shows at the end of March. And then for events of all kinds of other events, whether it be corporate or other, we had 40 events that were organized within the fiscal year. Page 14, the strategic partnership that you have a very long list spread over a page and a quarter. I know I'm going very fast, but it's just to give you an overview as to what is happening. We're moving, and even with the staff of 2.5 staff, we're doing a lot. And the last page that you see, page 16, that's a list of the main customers we had. Those in highlights are those that we received during the last fiscal year. New customers that we bring in. So things are evolving. There were 23% of increase in the traffic or in the revenues that were brought in over the last year. I don't know if you have any question up to now, up to here. The strategic committee was implemented, and we did several exercises of strategic activities to give us a strategic plan. What we wanted to do, we had the plan that was the Arabic study that was done at the beginning. We had document that existed, but after 4 years of existence, we said, let's back up. Let's reevaluate, just like any government that does strategic planning every 4 years. We did the same thing to adjust ourselves to today. The members were myself, Luc Godet, Robert Frenette, Pauline Cormier, Annie Dubé, André Roy, who is now a member of our board of directors, but he is an artist who works at Pila Jean Farah from the University of Moncton, who became a member of our board of directors. So it's a recruiting tool that we have, and Michel Routier, who participated to a few meetings with us at that time. Within the strategic plan, there's several pages. It's quite heavy. What we're presenting tonight is only the summary of what we have. So all of this, we came together, and what did we have? 7 or 8 sessions that we organized, and at the end of it all, the strategic statement that guides our center is we want to establish a dynamic environment that is interacting, where everyone from Dieppe and elsewhere can create and discover the arts and culture. We don't only want to be a place that will broadcast the capital University of Moncton. We want to be more than that. We want the population to become the owners, and we have ideas as to how we will do that. I'm not used to talking this much. We must say also that this statement, and we did this, this is what we did. But if you look at your cultural policy from the city and your strategic plan, where the cultural policy is within all these items, point one and point two, it goes directly into that. So this is a tool to execute this. So it meets what you are looking for. There's 3 strategic axles to show this. First of all, deriving from opportunities. The 3 strategic axle is the creation of partnership of events, arts and culture, the broadcast of an artistic programming, and very cultural development of workshops. We have nice rooms that are underused now, and we want to give ourselves a better opportunity to use them fully. So if we look to favor the creation of cultural and artistic events, what does it mean? This aims to develop initiatives that will allow to enrich the cultural and artistic life through partnership. There's an opportunity that establishes itself through the community, and one is done naturally. We want to be more catalyzer. We want to be the spark that will put it forward. There is a group. It's a group of senior citizens who wanted to do some painting work. They they take some money and they hire an artist to come and help them. We want to go a little bit further and to use it more and to establish partnership with groups that want to do it and how to develop it with them. Not only us, but to work with these people so that you have more buy-in, but that they have more power also. In our strengths and weaknesses, especially strength, we have an infrastructure, we have connections, we have capabilities of helping them to manage and to put that in market. That's an example. You can have a cultural ground. Somebody was telling me in Miramichi that is a group of senior citizens that came together to organize a drama group. We would be the ideal group that could establish a partnership with these people to have one in the act, to initiate it without having to manage the whole thing. We have the scene to help them, but to help the structure to take themselves. There's other groups with youth in school. There's music. We're not talking about rock band. In school, there's a very good jazz group. There's all kinds of levels where we can become more a partnership with them. So that's one of the major. The other one is to broadcast the program. You know that we have to keep an eye on that, and for certain niche, we must continue as a broadcaster to fulfill all this strategic excellence. For the training in the arts department to develop training activities in different artistic disciplines. Yeah, that's the development of workshops. So, sorry. So this is to offer the training in the artistic is to establish a partnership. We thought that the people would go and see the pottery room, and on their own they would come and rent the locals to give a course in sculpture and pottery. But we learned quickly that it's not something that is being done naturally. It's up to us to work in partnership with these people to train or to organize those kinds of activities. I don't know if you have any questions on the strategic. I'll try to go faster. Question from the counselors. No, go on. What does it mean then? How do we put this together? This may be a detail, and tomorrow we'll sit down with Mr. Ramon has questions for us, but we sat down and we established a partnership to execute the strategic plan so that the arts and culture they can live fully because now we are doing things and we are receiving shows it's not living as it should. We give ourselves a budget. First column is our budget for the year. The column on the right is a reference to our big. The study was done to launch the arts and culture. There was an Arabic study that the council had studied, so we put that as a counselor in the two column. That's year one and year three of the pro format budget. We base ourselves on several factors, but the traffic that we want to have in the rooms, the expenses the investment that we must make with the staff. Because presently, I don't know if you know, but lately, the Department of Human Resources of the city has done a study. The first thing they said we can see that you do that in one day with the staff that you have. So it's under equipped. We have Luc, we have his executive assistant, and a few staff at the reception, and that's it. So, of course, want to give us a strategic plan. We have to give us better resources. Just to make a request to the federal government can take 3 days to do that. But to manage a building over and above other buildings, other than arts and shows, we manage tenants. It's not only a matter of managing arts and culture. We've given ourselves a pro forma budget. We have to add a resource in community officer to help us to develop all the partnership with the targeted group, the focus group, and to give someone on a part-time basis to establish marketing and communication. $35,000 is not much money. Marketing is done in a traditional way, but also there's other ways, and so it, the lack of money is $175,000 in first year. Arts and culture that we will see throughout Canada, throughout all the other areas, cannot be viable. Even with 210 chairs, you're limited as to the number of people, and you're limited in several ways as to the number of person that will uh, go to see a show. Peter Sagwin, I mean, it's part of reality. It's not viable. We see it as the city as prosperous as the city of Moncton. You have arenas, you have public buildings, you have an aquatic center. The arts and culture center is something else. It's an infrastructure that is a must for development. but it's good like the aquatic center and arena. Some money is coming in, but the expenditures is much greater than the revenues that can come in. Realistically speaking, and we look at all kinds of avenues, we must say that we did not come here by accident. Uh, the government requires the federal government, like the others, they will finance projects. They will not finance operation. We feel that we want to go and get special projects, but at first we have to stabilize the operation. And also, we believe the trust fund with the interest that we have, it doesn't bring in the money that we need. And there's several other things. We can go and get private funds with sponsorship. But once you've knocked three times on the same door, there's no money. It's not sustainable long term. So, but the sponsor can be obtained for special event. What we're seeing today in the pro format we're showing you is the operation and the basis we have to establish to develop the center at its basis. Do you have any question up to here, up to now? Robert? Thank you for the presentation. I fully agree with your analysis. As a municipality, we have to decide what public service we want to offer and finance them adequately to make sure that we do it properly. At the time when the Center of Arts and Culture was created, we had an exercise to evaluate its structure. At the time, we evaluated that it be a public service compared to arena, that it be done by the municipality rather than be managed by a board of directors. And at the time, it was recommended by the arts sector to go more towards a board of director model, with the understanding that it would open doors to have access to private financing, which otherwise would not be available. Is it the case? It's still the case. We have a nonprofit organization number by having a board of director. But what we're asking you is for the operation. We will make the request, you know, as well as we do. The federal government leaves to be desired when we will get the financing for special project that we have that the program committee will help us to develop. It gives us an opportunity to go and get those funds, which otherwise would be more difficult. And if there's a major show and you go get all for us, this will allow us to get more money. Thank you. Thank you. Someone else? Let's go on. Monsieur Robert, it'll be brief. Mike asked me to tell you that this is my fifth year. Fernand has been associated for 9 years. She was one of the pioneer with the center. But I'm starting my fifth year with the center. And I took all that time to see everything turn around and to come to the conclusion, as Mark explained well to you. That is to say, yes to the question, we need resources to get money. And probably we started with a formula without having an ideal formula, but we work to get a formula. What we're looking for is an adequate financing formula. We learn along the way. We did everything possible to learn it. And the fact that we've been in operation for 4 years, it's easier to tell you this today than before we started the whole project. And also, I'm sure that you are sensitized to this, but you will remember maybe the importance of culture at the same level as sports and other activities to offer a good quality of life. It's important what you do in arenas, that is important. Everything that has to do with sports and recreation is important. Anything we can do culturally is important to help develop a lifestyle and to have a good population with vitality. Just to give you an example, I was reading an article. Sistema, do you know? Do you know Sistema? It's more in the field of music. They did a study as to what they're doing to bring people, young people towards music. Everything as after they put everything together, there was improvement in the performance at the high school, in the behavior, the self-esteem. 62% after 3 years of, uh, of being of attending school more in a more orderly way. That's the message that I wanted to come and give you in support of what was just given by Mark. I will conclude by saying we have an arts center, but an arts center in a competitive environment. We want to offer something to the Dieppe population, but we're in a competitive. In that there are other things we need much efforts in marketing communication, other than the limited staff that we have. The other thing also is that I had time to go through three board of directors. Thank you.
Est-ce qu'il y a
Are there any questions from councillors? Mr. Bedivo. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for this presentation tonight. I think it's important that you would have the opportunity to share the results of your work. One thing I would like to ask you is, it's not really a request, but I would like you to reinvent the format for this center starting next year and thereafter. I can understand, because I experienced this for a few years, that sometimes it's the difficulty is to have enough resources to take advantage of all the opportunities that arise. Whatever the municipality is dealing with financing projects, we know how much time it takes for our employees to fill in all the forms and all these files. So I think it would even be more difficult in arts and culture, because this is a field which is not really considered essential yet. I just wanted to ensure that I understand. This is a formula that we're looking for each year as a budgetary process. We reevaluate the needs for the years, and then we would make a new request each year once the first formula is accepted. But thereafter, after the year, we have to show what our accomplishments and say what we want to do with the next year and for our budget. So we don't want all this money to come in into our coffers directly. We have a formula. We want to have enough leeway to be able to go ahead. So we're asking for $175,000. Next year it will be different, but with 175, and we only use 120,000, then it'll be there. We'll use it the next year. So we want to know what formula exactly will be applicable to this formula. Congratulations for the work you've done to date, Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your presentation. I very much appreciated your approach with your strategic plan to determine where you want to go in the future, and then to establish a budget that will allow you to reach your goals. I agree with you Often in arts and culture, organizations do not help as much as they would in sports, for example. Or with sports buildings, sports complexes. I think you've done a very good work, and I think that after 4 years of experience trying to improve the center, you really deserve to be congratulated for your work, and I support your request. I mentioned that the request that we made to the city was voted by our board, and I think that tonight is the most number of people that are on the board. We had 12 members, and we voted unanimously to make this request before the council. Any other questions from councillors? If not, I thank you as well. I thank you for the presentation and also the work that has been done on that strategic plan, because the Arts Center, Arts and Culture in Dieppe is like another community center, but with another vocation for arts and culture. We have girls and boys clubs, a youth house, and they all have different vocations. We have the aquatic center and arenas. So I think your approach within our community with arts and culture, it has a very good importance in this file, so I congratulate you for all your hard work. Second point, Atlas of Acadian Settlement of Beaubassin region, Mr. Paul Surette and Vanessa Basque. From the Tantramar Heritage Trust.
C'est moi qui vais commencer.
Ça va, Monsieur Surette?
Simplement, Basse. Son nom c'est Basse.
Good evening. This is Basse, not Basque. She is not Acadian.
J'ai demandé à Madame Basse, parce qu'elle est ici un peu pour supporter l'œuvre que je fais. Elle préférait que...
I'm ask Madame Basse to be here. So I will let her go before me. She's an Anglophone, though she will speak to you in English.
Riait. J'ai dit à Paul.
My French is not very good. Please approach the mic. Thank you. And I'm also a bit deaf, but I said heavy. But I am a bit heavy as well.
Paul Bogard, who is the treasurer of our organization, the Tantramar Heritage Trust. He unfortunately can't be here tonight, so he asked me if I would come to support Paul in his presentation to you. I don't have a presentation myself. I am happy to support Paul. I've known Paul for several years, and as a trust we have been involved with Paul and his work since probably around 2004 or thereabouts, perhaps a little earlier. Yeah, and he and Paul Bogard, Paul wrote this atlas, and I'm sure most of you have received or have read this atlas about the Beaubassin. And we collaborated with Paul Surette to publish this. Luckily, there was the glory days of ACOA, so we did get some financial support then That is not the case now. However, we still feel that the book that Paul is presently writing is equally important to develop for the information that will be there for future generations and for the present generation. It has always been a concern for our trust that the history, the Acadian history of our area has not been well told. It's not told very well in the school. My daughter teaches it well, I know that, but it's not a common thing in the school. Je suis irlandaise, je ne suis pas...
I'm Irish and Canadian now, and I know very well that it's difficult.
The heritage of the history of a country, of people. I was surprised when I came to Canada, to the Maritimes, and that was over 40 years ago, to find that the stories weren't told to any great degree about the Acadians. And when I met Paul and when I heard of what he was doing, I was delighted that that was the case. I have since talked many times with Paul, have enjoyed the information that he provides in this book. I have been to the Beaubassin area with Monsieur Gaudet. Was invited there, and I remember one time we were there, and you may remember this too, Jean, that there were some people that I had asked to attend. They were bourgeois. They live in Sackville, and a lot of the people in Sackville who have heritage that is actually very strongly Acadian, they don't really know their history very well. And one of the young women that I'd invited had actually sang the anthem, the Acadian anthem, whenever the Trust put up a cairn, a monument, at the carriage factory that's in Sackville. And we put up a cairn there indicating that the Acadians had lived there before the English had lived there. And we felt that was very important. She sang the anthem and was pleased to do it, but was very, very concerned that her French wasn't good enough. When I invited her to go, after I talked to Monsieur Gaudet, to the commemoration at Beaubassin. I asked her again if she would come and do the same thing, because there was going to be a new flag raised, and your council very kindly had paid, as you recall, for the flag pole itself. She said, "Oh no, I couldn't, Vanessa, I couldn't do that. My French is not good enough." And I said, "Yes, you could. You could do that, and I'm sure everybody would love to hear you singing." So she did go, and she sang. At that presentation, I meant to make sure that Paul Surette met Miss Bourgeois, and I looked over, and he was already talking to her. Paul is very good at talking to young women, and he was talking to her and telling her about the history of the Bourgeois and the settlement at Beaubassin. And the Bourgeois family, all the girls are really quite short. And I went over and I said, "Oh, you've already met Paul?" And she said, "Oh, yes, yes, I have met Paul. We met him. He told us about our family, Jacques Bourgeois. He was a big, big man here, and we are so short." But the point was that she was learning from Paul Surette the history. He was pointing out all the places where the farms were, where everywhere was, where all the dwellings were in that area. That's really important. I've been involved with the archaeological dig that's been in that area as well, and I see people come there. Unfortunately, that's not being carried out now. But when it was happening, the people were coming there, and I could see many of them crying, because they were touching earth that their forebears, that their ancestors had stood on, that had been their homes, and the land was really important to them. I know from what Paul has told me, and I haven't seen the draft of the book as yet, but I know that there's nothing available in the literature of the Acadian history here that is there in the book that he is producing. I think it's very important for the present generation to have that information. I think it's even more important for the future generations to have that information. And I would hope today that in supporting Paul, that it also supports your ability to help him financially in the production of this book. For the Trust, we are quite happy to work with Paul. Like every other heritage and history association, we are very short of funds, so we can't help him financially. Paul Bogard, Dr. Bogard, has sent out letters on our heading, on our letterhead, requesting financial support from different organizations. We're hoping that we will continue to get some more support. We will help as far as the funds are concerned. We will administer the funds. We have a publications committee where we produced booklets, small books about the area. This fell within the realms of the publications committee. We will engage in selling and distributing this book once it comes to pass. It's unfortunate that we can't afford to help him financially ourselves, otherwise we would. But we can do it in kind. We can do it with our administrative help and with our goodwill with other organizations so that they too can get the information that Paul has worked so diligently to produce. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak here this evening.
Yes, our pleasure. Thank you for this warm up. Now, Paul, you're out of time, so.
Oh, I was going to say I'm really sorry that I'm talking so long, but I know that Paul too can get carried away and talk too long as well.
Oh, yes, we know. Oh, yes, we know.
Thank you very much.
But it's always very informative. Alors, merci. Thank you. Alors,
Thank you.
Paul, je vais quand même te donner quelques...
Paul, I'll give you a few minutes. I'm sure you're going to be interested in hearing me. I've spoken to you before. I'll try to be as quick as possible, but it's for all the other members of council too. Perhaps you can talk briefly about your project, your book, your creation. I started a long time ago with Acadie, publisher Acadie, editors, on all the villages, and in those books I gave them not only stories but maps so that they could see where the houses of their ancestors were, so they had photographs as well, so that they could know the region here. This won the prize France Acadie for the year, and with the Anglophones at Sackville, they are our friends, and I produced another book that Mrs. Basque has here that she could show you on the old villages in the Sackville area. And now with Tantrum, our Heritage Trust, the attitudes have changed. We have another project to continue with the villages that are more to the south. This book is already ready to prepare it. It cost $10,000. It's all on the computer and it's ready to be printed. This book is more important historically than the other two that I already published. And the reason for this importance is that the villages that are mentioned in this book are the foundations, are the oldest. From Moncton to Nova Scotia, it's the first village of white Europeans in our region. There's a lot of history there. It was the capital of Acadie, and a lot of things happened there. This volume is twice as big, and with their help I produced another one that's that big from that region as well, but there's only one that's ready to be published now. This is an important story, essential, that we must know. And the second reason for this historical importance is it's something we don't know, because for almost 200 years we cried with Evangeline and the deportation, but the expulsion, it's to get rid of the Acadians from this region, those that are in this book. And they wanted these lands. And the Acadians didn't want to give them up. It was their land. So the English to get to be able to get these lands had to expulse the French. And the English had much more power. We were on the Atlantic coast, but we were neighbors. The English had many more people there. When you're 170 against one, Moncton had the job to get us out of there and took everything, all the forces they had with them. But Moncton did not succeed, because what happened with all the power that they had? The Acadians in that region, almost 80% fought against the English, and they're still there. And the Acadians that are still there is because of them. So that the deportation for us, it was not really a deportation, because we won. It was a victory for us, and after 20 years, this victory is very important that everyone know about it. Thank you, Mr. Surette and Mrs. Basque. Are there any questions from councillors? Mr. Godet, I should have known, of course. Thank you, Paul Surette and Mrs. Vanessa, for your presentation.
Close to your heart and dear to your heart, to be able to have on record and explain and present the facts of Beaubassin being so important in the history of Acadie, and being so important in the history of our immediate region from Minoudi up the river. There's no question that what Paul Surette has done is, comment on peut le dire là, incomparable. You can't, it doesn't compare with anything that has been. I wish to really recognize the effort of the Tantramar Heritage Fund, and if anyone has not visited Campbell's Carriage Factory, they should, and the other places of that you have preserved and are prepared to show, like the Bolton House and the others in Sackville itself. So I appreciate very much your cooperation and wish that we can help substantially with the printing of the next atlas. So thank you for being here.
Merci, M. Godet. M. Brideau.
Thank you, Mr. Godet. Mr. Brideau, I would like to ask a question, Mr. Surette. You wrote several books on the history of Acadians in the South. Did you do the same thing in other areas, like the Acadian Peninsula? No, we can't do everything. If you do things the modern way, scientifically, you choose your territory and you work there. And that's enough work. I set up my limits. It's the history of the Acadians in this region, but it's a very important area. If we would not have had that region for the Acadians, the expulsion at that time here in Sackville area, they were not expulsed, just like in Louisiana. When they won, they took their own both. They went to Louisiana. But without these people, there would have been no Acadie. We're crying about Evangeline, and when the Acadians from this region and the exportation, why did the Acadians of Grand Pré? It started 3 weeks later. They had a lot of time to do things, but they didn't do anything. They all were exported. But you're crying over spilt milk, and there's nothing worse than that in the world. So the book I wrote, it's to remedy the contamination, the poison they gave us with a bad history that we've had for a very long time. Pardon me for going about it this way. But you talk about your book, and you said that there there were French and 100 or so Anglophones, and in the Acadian peninsula, we see little villages that are typically English, like Tabusintac, for instance, is English, and Tragadi is French, and there are other little villages like that. I tell you that the Acadians won. They fought well, and the English soldiers knew it. And the Acadians that fought well, that stayed, they put fear into the English. So you had a territory that was all Acadian, and the English were afraid. If there were a little village here and there of English, then they could watch the Acadians, and the English wanted that. Did I answer your question very well? Yes, thank you, and thank you for your book. I worked at the Village Historique Acadien. I know that area well. Yes, there's English here, pockets of English and French here and there, and there are historical reasons for that. Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Surette. And Mrs. Basque. Thank you. Next item, we had the Club Extenso Gymnastique, Rhythmic Gymnastic Extenso.
I believe Mrs. Christine Lavoie is president. Monique Richard, sorry. And Monique Richard, vice president.
C'est pas mal fancy, là. OK, bonsoir, madame et monsieur.
Good evening, I'm Monique Richard. I'm vice president of the Extenso Gymnastic Rhythmic. I have a small presentation to make tonight. And these are the counselors, volunteer, and parents, as well as gymnast people. So we want to talk to you about our club so that you may know what is rhythmic gymnastic. It's not everybody that knows what it's all about. It's an Olympic sport for girls and women only that includes gymnastic, as you probably know, dance, ballet, flexibility, and the manipulation of object. It's done on a carpet, the ribbon, a ball, a massue that are like when you juggles, a ring, a cord, and the lower they have a free hands with nothing in their hands, empty hands if you wish. There's also routines of groups. So by doing a routine with one of those objects or free hands, it lasts between a minute and a half to 2 minutes. A bit of a history on the rhythmic gymnastic in the province. There's one gymnast in Dieppe that participated the Olympic 1988. Her name is Lise Gautreau. You may know her. She is not with our club, but it's just to say that it's possible there may be some athletes from our area that can go far. Sports has existed for a long time. since the 1970s, 1980. We've participated in the Canada Games. There's even one Canadian that won gold at the Pan American Game in 2014. The Extenso Club, as such, is a non-profit organization. We are the only club in the region. The closest one is in Fredericton. And the administration committee, as you can imagine, are comprised of volunteers. We're all mothers of gymnasts. Most of us live in Dieppe, so the majority are from Dieppe. We have 5 trainers. 3 are certified, and 4 are resident of the 4 of the 5 live in Dieppe. We're located in Dieppe since 2006. Presently, we rent the Sainte Thérèse and Anomalafan School. We have 122 participants, aged between 3 and 17 years of age. 73% are residents of Dieppe. Out of 87, 65 are creative, 5 pre-competitive, and 17 competitive. And we are certified with the city of Dieppe. The courses that we offer are at different level. We have the recreational, which is more basic and a matter of having fun. The pre-competitive, they teach them how to keep a routine. We have inter-club competition. Then we have the competition level, and we organize camps in the summer or during the March break. Our camp attracts gymnasts from other clubs from other provinces. I want to say a few words about the economic and community development that our club brings to the city. All the activities are in this city. We have more than 32 hours of courses per week. All these parents come to Dieppe. A lot of courses are on Saturday, you can imagine. They do some shopping after or while the girls are competing. They spend money in the city. We offer shows. We have 4 per year. Approximately 1,000 people are attracted. We organize competition and we rotate among the clubs in the province. Last year, we participated in the regional. This year, we are hosts for the first time at what is called the qualification for the Eastern Championship. It's the first time that competition has existed, and we will be the host. We also have a chance to be a host for the Eastern Canada in 2017. That includes Quebec and all of Atlantic provinces. Many of our gymnasts are at very high level. We have 3 that represented at the Eastern Championship last year. They all live in Dieppe. And in this picture, we see Camille won a trophy, a plaque for having the highest score. Just to show you our annual budget, we have a budget of approximately $104,000 this year. And our 2 main expenses are the rental of the gym that will cost $33,000 this year, and the salary at $54,000. That is not a surprise. We want to pay our trainers so that they will keep on training and they will stay with us. Consideration and challenges, as you can probably imagine, the rental of the gymnasium is the highest challenge. We continuously search for new gyms. It's not obvious. The only option that we have is to rent from the Francophone school district at a cost of $24 to $40 an hour, depending on the day of the week and the time of day. Give you an idea, last year it cost us $27,000 to rent the gymnasium. This year it will cost us $33,000 or more even. And the rates did increase by 25% per hour. It's quite a big challenge for us because we are a regional club. So, it makes a big difference in our budget. The other consideration that we want to share with you is that there's no community gym in the city of Dieppe, and obviously we would be happy to have one. We rent more than 30 hours a week right now. Just with us, you would have your gym rented on a full-time basis. If ever you should consider to have a community gymnasium, we would support it and we'd be very happy to work with you on such an idea. We know that there are sports organizations being planned. So anyway, think about it. Maybe an option to have a community gymnasium over and above the nice arena that we have. As a certified installation, we know those that are certified have a reduction of 40% on the city's facilities. That does not apply to us because there's no facilities in the city that has a gymnasium. Just to give you an idea, $33,000 at 40% discount would save us $13,600. So we're asking tonight for the city to consider a donation of $8,000 to the club to help us with our rental of the gymnasium. And in return, we started with support categories. We also make requests with our sponsor, and so it would be a platinum support, and we would promote the banner of Dieppe on all our social media and in all our events, media, as well as at our practices. That's my presentation. We have time for questions. Thank you, Mrs. Richard. Question from the members of council. Mr. Nolan, thank you, Your Worship. Maybe everyone doesn't know, but I work a lot with a physiotherapist of the region. I've helped them in the past in a competition last year and the year before. It's a group that is very interested in the community, and I hope that eventually we will have a community gymnasium. I can see it at the sports and aquatic center. I hope we'll see it sooner rather than later. Just to let the director hear me, I would support any request that would be made, and we'll have to assess greatly during the budgetary process. Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Mr. Leblanc. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ms. Richard, for your presentation. Does the Boy and Girls Club is available for such events? For the space, you need a height of 30 feet in the gymnasium because when you throw balls or articles, the ceiling is not high enough. It was considered, but just not adequate? Yes, that's right. It has to be an open space. We need 4,000 square feet and ceilings that are 20 to 40 feet. But like for the Eastern competition, it's 30 feet. They have more specific standards. It's established by the Federation. As I was reading the report, I was really thinking of the Boys and Girls Club. I did not realize the height that is required. So, thank you, Mr. Beliveau. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your presentation. When is your fiscal year? September to September. So you say 2014. You just started your new fiscal year, yes, and you are undertaking steps to collect $5,000 and other sponsorship or partnership to help you to pay some of your rental. Yes, we organize fundraising also, and we bottle. We collect bottles. How long are you giving yourself to complete your campaign to raise $5,400? How long are you giving yourself? Do you have a date? Don't tell me until the end of August 2015. Well, it's a very good question. I don't think we've established an expiry date, or that's something we should consider. Are you continuously collecting funds? Do you always organize fundraising at all time? Yes, but for different purpose. We organize some for the competition. Right now, we are looking to get money for a rental of a gymnasium. Thank you for the information and good luck. Mr. Gadet, thank you. I recognize that the rhythmic gymnastic is a special field with its requirements, but also with those that participate acquire a skill and a special discipline also. I don't know if we can compare it to figure skating, as we call it, but it's certainly a special field. And for having seen Debbie Bryan start, followed by Lise Gautreau, for having seen them at the SEP, I admire very much the people who persevere in the exercise of the rhythmic rhythm gymnastic. I fully agree to try and bring your wish to the building of a stadium, gymnasium, call it whatever you want. That would be the supplement of the aquatic center. I think it's a tool in the community that would be worth a lot. So, thank you for your presentation and have a good season. Just to say that some of our best athlete practice 15 hours a week. They're 10 to 12 years of age. They're very dedicated, devoted, and they're doing a good job. Thank you very much for your presentation, and of course, it will be considered. The request will be considered with next month's budgetary deliberation. Thank you. Have a good evening. Next presentation on the agenda is the ELF program, Elementary Literacy, Elementary ELF. Is there someone to make a presentation? Well, we just gained 20 minutes by having nobody here. Well, we're on time. They were scheduled for 6:30 and it's 6:43, so well, okay. So the next one is the health and well-being strategy in Dieppe. What? I'm sorry. Good evening. Good evening. It's our turn. I'm Sonia Babino. I'm a community officer with the city of Dieppe. So tonight we will make a presentation on a strategy of well-being for the city of Dieppe. I want to introduce to you my colleague, Dr. Yves Leger. Dr. Leger is a regional hygienist doctor for the province of New Brunswick. Tonight we will make a presentation. I will begin by giving you the agenda. Quite simple. First part, Dr. Legier with the public health will establish the context. Afterwards, I'll give you an up-to-date on the history, the members of the committee, the goals and objective, the priority orientation that were established, and the next steps. And at that time, if you have questions, you may ask them. So, Dr. Legier has the floor. Thank you, Sonia. Good evening, Your Worship, and members of Council. To place you in the context, the media are full of articles that want to talk a lot about serious disease, whether it's TB, whether it's a seasonal flu, the Ebola pandemic. So it's easy to think that we must be very worried, very concerned, and are the greatest concern to our health. But in fact, as of today, maybe it was the case 100 years ago, but it's mostly the chronic disease that are responsible for the major impact on one's health. So I have a few slides with charts that are there to help and show what the situation is all about. If you look on the left-hand side, the chart, it's a table, it's a chart. If you look at the last 20 years, by importance, the disease that have the greatest impact on last year of life. It's a combined statistics that show the number of disease with the loss of life that was lost. So, if we look at the list that we have, it's chronic disease that are on top of that list. We talk about heart, diabetes, respiratory, lungs, and cancer. These are the main disease. On the right, you have figures or data from the province of New Brunswick. So the upper diagram shows the percentage of death among the men in 2006, and at the bottom, women. As for the percentage of the causes of disease, if we look, we notice that about 75%, 3 out of 4 deaths are related to chronic disease, cancer, heart problem, and lung disease. So it puts in context the importance of acute disease, chronic disease. So as for the prevalence of the chronic disease, the data are divided among zones. If you look on the right, the global picture for the whole province, we note that in the blue category, that is at the lower part, 30% says they have no chronic. All the other colors represent the people who report at least one or more chronic disease. 2 out of 3 New Brunswickers report themselves having affected, which is higher than the national average. So we have to ask ourselves, why are these so prevalent or higher in New Brunswick, if you wish? We have to understand that the chronic disease, it's a diverse, as different diseases. There are risk factors that are considered non-changeable, that cannot be changed. They have to do with our gender, with our age, and with our race. Those are things we cannot change, but there are things we can change that are related to our behavior, our lifestyle, what we eat, the physical activities, if we smoke, if we drink a lot. There's other factors that we call often the socioeconomic factors. And finally, the access to things such as education, employment, adequate income to have an acceptable lifestyle, quality of life, uh, literacy. These are factors that have a role to play. Uh, on the right, the pie shows us the importance of these different factors in the health of a population, and we talk often of the health system and the cost. And if we look at all the money that is spent in our hospitals, clinic, and health facilities, it represents a high amount of expenses. But the purple that is called healthcare, only 10% is responsible for the health of the population. As you can see, the health behavior, which is the physical activity, tobacco, and what can be controlled, and the socioeconomic factors that are the most important in the determination on the health of the population. Obesity wise, we hear a lot in our media. It's certainly a phenomenon that is of the greatest importance and plays a large role in many of the chronic disease. You can see the chart that I have here with the trends in Canada in the last 30 to 40 years. Combination of different survey, but the picture is the same. We see the trend upward uh, uh, on obesity in New Brunswick and Canada. And of course, this is the reflect of our culture, of our society, that change, a society that is more oriented towards fast food. They look to eat snack, good tasting, but have more calories and more energy and portion that are bigger than they were before, and our lifestyle that is more sedentary, uh, stable. So this is what explains somewhat the trends in that sense. I see the graphic that impressed me the most was the one of fitness club with an elevator. That one makes me laugh. Yes, of course. As for the other behavior, the New Brunswick Health Council published their picture of the health of the population that talks about prevalence of different factors such as physical activity, consumption of fruits, produce, consumption of alcohol and tobacco for the residents of New Brunswick. So unfortunately, as for the other factors, we don't have. We are under the average, or over the average, if you wish, on several factors of risk that are most important, such as physical activity, consumption of fruit and vegetables, and tobacco and alcohol. It's not encouraging if you look at that. On a more local level, the New Brunswick Health Council recently published in April of this year their community profile. They divided the province in 33 communities, if you wish. For each one of these communities, they did a picture with several indicators of health. And this one for the municipality combined with the town of Memramcote. Council is telling us that the data are very applicable to the municipality of Dieppe, bearing in mind the size of the population of Dieppe compared to Mermancourt. It's available online if you're interested. The main things, generally speaking, as to the behavior dealing with health, the city of Dieppe is better than the provincial average, In some facets, slightly better, but better for most. This being said, there's still a lot of room for improvement. Some indicators are a greater concern with the provincial average as to the level of consumption of alcohol, and which brings five or more consumption at a given time. The level of obesity with adults are higher than the provincial average, and those that are at risk of establishing a habit with tobacco. So, what do we do? How do we intervene in such a situation? The health impact pyramid that is shown here is interesting because it shows the different level of intervention where we can act, compare, or reflect it with their potential impact on the population and the individual efforts that is needed to apply it. Sometimes we concentrate ourselves, we do a lot of work at the top of the pyramid with counseling or clinical intervention, such as screening. These are something that have less impact and they ask more efforts. So they're important, but we always keep in mind that the level at the bottom of the pyramid are those that we must favor. They have more impact with the population and they require less effort. So, by establishing policies that will increase the access to quality policies and social programs such as income support and things like that. And part of this, we talk about context, so the importance of changing our environment, working habit to make sure that the healthy choice are the one that are chosen. Possible option, I won't give you the list in details, but within the behavior we've talked about are all themes or sphere that can be adopted by a municipality to have an important role to play to change the context where people make a decision. We'll stop and I'll give it back to my colleague. Councilor Béliveau, was your question for Dr. Legier? Thank you, Worship. It shows 7 zones. In what zone is Dieppe located? It would be zone area number 1. The sanitary that are used by the Department of Health, Dieppe is area number 1. Does it include Southeast New Brunswick? Yes, it would. It would go as far as Sussex, maybe slightly more towards the north. But thank you, Worship. Thank you. Mrs. Babino, now that the context has been established by Dr. Legier, I will explain the process or the reason for the strategy. Dr. Legier approached the municipality in January 2014 to offer his services, to explain somewhat, to do what he did tonight by establishing the context and give us an update of the context for the residents. He presented to the director of the municipality January 2014. Following this, the municipality established a committee. The next slide, I'll give you more details as to who the members are on that committee. Afterwards, since January, there has been several meetings, several with specialists and experts, and obviously with the members of the committee. So the members of the committee are who? I sit on the committee, Raymond Burke, Director of Leisure and Recreational Facilities, Isabelle Darbo, who's a nurse with Vitality Health Authority, Annie Duguay, who's the Director Communication, Alexandre Girard, who's a planner, Dr. Yves Leger, of course, who is a regional hygiene doctor, Martin Savoie, who is Director of Human Resources, and Joan Terrio, who is dietitian with the Vitality Health Authority and Joanne is here with us tonight. So she is a member of that committee. It's important also, I will say a few words on Joanne's commitment. A lot of program have been started under Joanne's leadership. The process that was implemented with the members of the committee, with the expertise of Dr. Legier through consultation and the data that were supplied to the committee, also through the profile of the New Brunswick community. Together, the committee mandated or indicated an objective that would be to establish um, an environment that would favor healthier environment. The people have determined some objective that they would like to see, such as a priority orientation for the people of our municipality.
Objectif
I'm going to talk about the 3 priority objectives that were chosen. Factors that influence health. It is to promote a healthy food program, activities, and organizations, meetings in the city of Dieppe. But we started evaluations. We have food that is taken to the day camps, but sometimes parents bring things too. So Joanne helped a lot with these processes. We evaluated all the food that was furnished in 2013 to the participants of camps. Joanne evaluated everything with a dietitian, and then there was a lot of work done afterwards. She took a guide for the buying of all the food, and with this guide, we use it at the day camps and preschool programs for children 3 to 5 years old, and intersocial organizations for special needs. And Joanne takes care of this guide, and as well as this guide, she also has a guide for parents. What to put in the lunchbox of a child. So we've had registrations online, and when the children come to a program, this guide, Joanne's guide, promoted good nutrition to parents for their children. And the other thing is the Étoile, Sentier de l'Étoile, the Star Trail for children, which is a kilometer long, and where the children walk. And when it was opened, we gave them a health snack to be able to promote health food. And I always tell these students that it's validated by Joanne, so that worked very well this year. Another example is to promote a healthy food in public events that are organized by the city of Dieppe. For example, the Mercredi Chaud stand. So we evaluate all the food that is offered and what people are selling in these stands. And sometimes, as you will see, business will come, and this time there were health foods offered in one of these stands. So perhaps we can continue this. And the thirdly is to promote physical activity during programs and events within the municipality. So during these programs, we have ideas and initiatives that we want to include in municipal events. What is the next step? We would like to develop a strategy, a healthy strategy, to promote good food choices and an active and healthy life, and to identify an action plan to improve the health habits of the residents. Do you have any questions? Any questions from councilors? Mr. Brideau. Dr. Leger, you spoke of youth and children who are obese. What are the programs at the time being that are into place to help those children because they're going to grow? And if you don't attack the problem immediately, then the problem will grow at 15 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old. Are there any programs in place to help these young children? Yes, there are a few of them. I can't give you a whole list, but there are different organizations at different levels that work with this type of program. There are federal initiatives as well that are in place. Provincially, there are government departments, public health, for instance, and the inclusive committees department that have programs in place, and there are health networks in the province that were developed to do about the same thing, to help people and organizations to work together to improve health habits of people. So are people at different levels that work to try to improve the health of young people and adults as well. It's important that all levels and all these community institutions are implicated. There are roles for parents and children, and there's a role to play for the institutions, daycares and schools. They have their role to play. And here tonight we're talking about the role of municipalities. There are different groups and communities that work on their own level. Thank you, Councillor Nolan. Thank you, Your Worship. I think this is a very good initiative. I think it would be important that we work as well in our municipal centers, aquatic center, the arenas, in the vending machines as well. I know that we had tried it in our centers, and there were products in the machines that were bad because they had a short shelf life. That's unfortunate. So the good products weren't selling, and chips and chocolate bars were selling a lot better. So I think we should have a balance of choices in vending machines for the residents who don't take their health seriously and who don't want problems. They want to be healthier. Yes, I agree. And we had those discussions as well around the table in municipal institutions, canteens, arenas, places like that. We were talking about it. And we know that we can't make big changes right away because sometimes it's difficult for people to accept them. So we're talking about gradual change. It's a little bit like smoking. We're trying to change the culture. So you have a good point. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Nolan. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. Dr. Leger, I noticed in your presentation that you talk about a lot about chronic illnesses. I think these illnesses, when you've had them for a long time, then you can have even additional illnesses. When we talk about chronic illnesses, it's a category of illness that progress gradually. They're there for the long term, like heart disease, diabetes, cancers, lung problems. Those are the categories that are different from other things, such as infectious diseases. They're caused by infections. You can treat them, and they're easily treated. And like I said, these illnesses are very important, and they have a lot of risk factors that can cause other illnesses that we can treat. Thank you. That's a very good presentation. Thank you as well for this initiative. Thank you for your presentation, Dr. Leger. Thank you. I know that there's a municipal team that is working on this project. So we will hear speak of this again. Next item.
Residents of Ward, Ernie, it's time to come up. Or maybe Councillor Thibodeau will introduce the item for us.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire.
Mr. Maxwell gave me a petition that he wanted me to present to council. And as you all have a copy, it is asking
Bicycle lanes removed along with the no parking sign. Alors, c'est évident que la demande, c'est pour avoir un peu plus de stationnement sur la rue.
so we want more parking on Lorette Street. So this request was amended a bit this afternoon. Mr. Maxwell called me and asked me
Lanes removed, be changed for have both the bicycle lanes removed along with the no parking sign. Alors, je demanderai à Monsieur Maxwell if he wants to explain the arguments for their requests and to the council.
Good evening, Mr. Maxwell.
Evening.
So, now's your airtime, and literally airtime, because you realize you're not to put any pressure on, but you realize that we're live on the World Wide Web, right?
Yeah, right.
No, we are really. You can.
That's right.
You can go back home and watch it after, So exciting. That's about as exciting as it gets, isn't it?
Probably.
Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, if you want something to add to that, well, we have a few of the people on Lorette Street behind me. And yes, we would like to have both lanes removed. We've taken a quick look at bicycles on Lorette Street, and I don't think there's a half a dozen people that drive bicycles. And those that do are on the sidewalk or right down the middle of the road. So the bicycle lanes aren't of much value as far as we're concerned. And you can't park in the street because you fellas have those little white cars that go around, put tickets on people that do park there. So no matter what the occasion, you still get a ticket.
Okay. I have to say that, any questions from council, first of all, before I jump in? Monsieur Conseiller Béliveau.
Let me test the water for you, Mr. Mayor. I went by today just to see what signage was up there. You're right, there are two bike lanes on both sides of the road.
That's right.
One that prohibits parking except during the winter months, I understand. You can't park during the day or you can't park during the winter. One is basically classified parking. So if there was somebody from engineering, they could tell us that there's one that says you can park certain times of the year, but not other times of the year.
Just certain times of the day, too. I think.
That one I didn't
Yeah,
notice.
I'm not sure.
But I was speeding by. No, I wasn't going fast. But I'm also asking, you mentioned there's a sidewalk on Lorette?
They're on one side,
On one side?
yes.
Sur un côté. When I'm coming down from Champlain, it's on my right-hand side or my left-hand side?
Left hand,
Gauche. Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Gauche.
All right. Merci, Monsieur le Maire.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mrs. Dallaire.
Were the bike lanes put in place on Lorette Street? Have they been there since the beginning when all the other bike lanes were put in place? Or are they fairly recent?
No, they probably have been there for a while.
Okay.
But apparently there was some up in the subdivision that were removed.
Okay. Have you noticed a change recently? Why? Because if they've been there since the beginning, are there new problems? Why this request has come to council now and it didn't come when the bike lanes were first put in place, or?
Just since you people have got the little white truck going around putting tickets on.
Okay, and my final question was, since the request has changed from removing one to both,
Yes.
were all the residents that signed the petition, did you go back to make sure that they agreed to sign?
A lot of them said that we should have both of them removed when I put the petition out, but
Okay, all right,
I didn't change it
okay, thank
until
you.
now.
OK, merci. Monsieur le conseiller Godette.
Ça allait bien, Monsieur Ernie? Have your opinions? Sorry, I should ask, do I understand that the amount of bicycles that use Lorette does not, in your mind, worth it having bicycle lanes?
No,
If it was a shared road, like a bicycle, to the little bicycle signs, and it includes sharing the road, but not a specified lane, do you think that would work, or that would solve your challenge?
That would probably work.
Because I see having one lane on one side not very useful. How do you go around just going one way? If you only had one bicycle lane,
Yes.
how do you get the other way? Because bicycle
Go up
lanes
the
are meant
sidewalk,
to,
the same as they always do.
yeah, are meant to be one direction. So I would suggest that we look at having the signs of shared road.
That would be fine,
Do you think the
as long as we can park on the side of the road, yeah.
citizens would agree to that part?
The ones that are here are in agreement.
Can't get unlucky all the time, eh?
Pardon me?
I say you can't get unlucky all the time,
No, that's true.
so you have your support.
Right.
I thank you for representing your confrère on the street.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Anybody else? Quelqu'un d'autre? I guess I'll have my say now. You know,
Come on, spit it out.
I never could understand why there was, and I still have not been convinced why there should be two bicycle lanes on the street. And just listening to Councillor Godette, I can assure you that in much busier streets, in much busier cities, they have a whole lot of different kinds of arrangements. And one place that comes to mind for me is on the South Shore of Montreal, much busier cities than we have, with much larger population. They only have one bicycle lane, which allows for traffic on both sides, which allows, again, for parking on one side of the street, at least, for when there's special, you know, we all get visitors sometime, right? So, I mean,
You might.
where do they park?
They park on the street.
Some nights more than others, but you know, then at least it allows for some parking on the streets. And another consideration may well be to consider special events, for example, that there's special permission granted in certain neighborhoods, or all neighborhoods for that matter, for people to park. I know we've gotten sometimes such requests. Somebody's having a wedding, and there's a wedding. It's not a large wedding in a hall. It's a small family wedding, and they want to hold it in their house. And I'm not sure what did happen to that particular request. I don't know if the enforcement people just turned a blind eye, or whether there was actually a permission granted, but,
Well, there was one family on our street that did ask to have parking on the street and they were rejected.
so that's one answer. So I think there's, it may be a worthwhile effort to, for the city staff to review the circumstances and so on. And we're running into that with a whole lot of different regulations that have been put in place that maybe we need to be more permissive, but for which there may be a price to pay, for example. And another one was signage, for example. We're dealing with an issue with signage right now. So for small enterprises, you know, that somebody does a job somewhere, he puts a sign on the lawn, and the enforcement people do their job, right? The law says, or the bylaw says, you're not allowed, so you're not allowed. But maybe it should be allowed for a period of time for a fee or something like that. So, you know, that's an example of another type of bylaw that, and, you know, the sidewalk, not the sidewalk, but the bicycle lanes may well be one of those that we need to take a look at. Anyway, I want to thank you for presenting it on behalf of your neighborhood, and I can assure you that it did not fall on deaf ears, and we will go back to staff and ask for some clarification and maybe review some initiatives in those areas. I see Councillor Nolan wants to have his say.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just perhaps to mention as well, our bylaw, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Mayor and Mr. CAO, there is either a bylaw or provincial law that states that you cannot ride a bicycle on a sidewalk. So should our little white truck or our little car or an RCMP vehicle pass, he may ticket the operator of that bicycle for riding on the sidewalk. And it's not only our bylaw enforcement that can ticket vehicles, it is the RCMP as well. They do have, they are bylaw enforcement officers under the New Brunswick Police Act as well. So just for information purposes. But I definitely think we should consider looking into this request. I like Jean's idea, given perhaps future projects coming in that area. So, yes.
Okay. Merci. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we'll, Mr. Maxwell, can you leave your phone number with Mark, with our city manager, so that in the event that there's a follow-up or for a presentation to council, we'll advise you so that you know that it's coming up, so you can come back and see us. Say no more.
We should follow Mr. Gadet's recommendation to just do away with the lines and keep the bicycle symbols in place. Shared road, like you said. But anyway.
We'll see where we go. Okay, Mr. Gadet.
Maybe, Mr. Maxwell, maybe there could be a clarification. If there is one side or one lane, it could or should be bi-directional, two ways. And that was maybe not clear in the discussion. So, do you understand what I mean? The lanes we have in Dieppe are unidirectional. You go one way. And the fact is that you can have a bicycle lane with the two directions and a center line. That's another way of looking at it. But I think in the case of Lorette, a shared road is probably the best way.
Well, the bicycle lanes stop at the brook, if you know where the brook is.
Yep.
Okay. That's as far as they go. After that, I guess bicycles are all free to go.
Not yet.
Just for council's benefit, is there a plan to link that section to the current trail system? Excuse me.
Mr. Mayor, the future connection will be to the Lakeburn Street, if I remember correctly. I have the map in front of me, but the bicycle lanes on the street will connect to the other side of where there's no street right now, but that's for future development.
Future
So
development.
perspective as a global plan was to connect that Lakeburn section to be connected to the rest of the trail or bicycle lane across the city, so.
Lakeburn Avenue extension.
Okay. So we'll bring this to council with what was presented at that time.
Okay, merci, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome to hang around, but you all look so excited about it.
You people can understand English a lot better than I can understand French.
Was your device not working for you, or?
Check that one for sure.
Yeah.
We're all,
The one he had didn't work. Next item on the participative budget.
Bonsoir.
Councillors, it's almost a year. Today I gave you a short video on our initiatives on the participative budget. So this is an example that we could have ultimately with the residents. We're talking about continuum and at the right of an engagement, a commitment to decisions. So since then, we have a new policy on the participation of the public has inspired our efforts in the community. And we have recommendations to adopt this policy, which will be presented at the next council meeting next Monday. We've already had 2 drafts. So since last year, I studied this concept on participative budget, and I've consulted other cities and people who are working with this type of budget, and now we have to discuss about the merits of such steps for Dieppe, and that's why I'm here tonight. In the context, I want you to watch this video again. It'll take 3 minutes to remind people where we are.
Ça fonctionnait il n'y a pas longtemps.
It was working earlier.
Right, if you live in this community and you pay taxes, come out and vote, decide how your tax dollars get spent.
Participatory budgeting gives people real power over real money to make the decisions that affect their lives. It's a democratic process in which ordinary community members directly decide how to spend part of the public budget.
Oh, this is different because you're actually voting for where the money is going to be spent instead of allowing them to decide where to spend the money.
Who knows better about their community than the people that live in their community?
So how does it work? First, people brainstorm ideas. They come together in neighborhood assemblies and start to think of what kinds of projects would they like to see in their neighborhood. Volunteers take people's initial ideas and turn them into real projects.
We started with maybe about 40 projects, and so we had a series of budget delegate meetings, and we narrowed down the list into about 4 or 5 projects.
What are the real needs of the community if you only have a certain amount of money? What is it that you can do that's going to benefit as many people as possible?
We're asking for a projector and 30 Mac laptops.
Displays at bus shelters throughout the district, and it will tell people when their next bus is due to arrive.
I'm dreaming of new benches, modern benches. Seniors have nowhere to go.
People get a taste of making the tough decisions and coming up with things that can be done to improve their community, and they bring them back to the public for a vote.
we're validating every voice in our community and saying, you know what, whatever your position is, you live in our community, you have a right to decide, and that me as a representative and government should respond and should listen to that voice.
The projects with the most votes get funded.
We have the playground improvements at Millbrook Housing.
They are then implemented over the next few years, and the following year, the process starts again. People brainstorm new ideas, turn them into new projects, vote on them, and fund more improvements for their community. PB becomes part of the budget process. It becomes a new way of governing.
I think this is like the greatest wave of democracy coming into the United States. It started in Porto Alegre, Brazil in 1989.
From there, it spread all over Latin America and to over 1,500 cities around the world. In Toronto, public housing tenants have decided to spend millions of dollars each year on improvements to their buildings. In Chicago and New York, city council members have set aside discretionary funds for the community to decide. In Vallejo, California, PB has been used citywide for funds from a new sales tax.
This was a great opportunity for you to be a part of government and better the city you live in. Like, who wouldn't want to take advantage of that?
You're creating a more educated platform of voters overall. So I think this can only be good for the big project of democracy.
So even if we think that the participatory budget is a financial issue, for me it's not that, but it's rather a question of community development. I explain. I want to introduce you Maria. She lives in Chicago. She's the owner of a house. And her neighbors have known serious problem with the builder not knowing where to go for help. They didn't know the operation of the municipality. She went to her counselor, who led her in a good direction. But it is at that time that she met her counselor. He invited her to participate in a meeting of the participatory budget. The first meeting he was organizing in Chicago. And that is when she became committed, fully committed in her ward. And she is now a member of the government committee of the participatory budget. She's been a member of the national committee, and today she talks about her involvement with the process. It's such an enriching experience that she is crediting it for having gone to a career where her mission is to do some community development. I want to introduce you to Sherry. Sherry is a young adult in Boston who grew in a poor family of that municipality. Her parents gave her some good values, going to her respect and compassion, but without knowing it, they also had a very strong feelings toward white people. It is when she grew somewhat, she was hired by the municipality as a student in a service network for youth, that she had to change her way of thinking, because she realized that by meeting other youth, white youth, she had a lot to learn. She had a lot more to win by exchanging these dialogue and the diversity as a whole. Today, Sherry is a person working within the Boston participatory budget, which is helping more than 1 million young people. She is a member of the youth committee of the mayor. They all want to establish a link between young families and to engage them with the community, and the participatory budget could help her to continue to practice what she learned when she was young, to change the residents of the people of her community. Finally, I want to introduce Ravi. Not that long ago, he moved into Vallejo, into a house they were cultivating flowers and a garden. Unfortunately, he lost his wife. She passed away. And after much problem, it is only, well, a neighbor came encourage him to attend a meeting of the participatory budget meeting that he started, finding well-being and participating in his community. Of course, with his knowledge in horticulture, he made it available to a project that was proposed, and that project was retained as one of the projects retained by the city. And since then, the residents and visitors see with pride the first garden of that municipality. Ravi is now an ambassador who is very much respected in his community, and he is credited in the participatory budget for having integrated him in the municipality. The process gave him a benefit of what he was able to bring to the process, even if his contribution had been very little. These are only three personal examples that show that for the process, it's not necessarily financial, but it's within the community development. If we look in Dieppe, we have these people here, whether it's the high number of senior citizens, the basin of youth that are already involved with people, whether we want or not, feel that they are powerless. This is a good way, I believe, of sensitizing these people, of committing them, of taking advantage of their experience for the benefit of our community. And we also notice that in society as a whole, not only in Dieppe, that the reduction of volunteering is being done, but this is another opportunity for people to get involved in something that they know it's a short term, but there is a definite purpose, there is an immediate impact of what they will do and to their contribution. As you know, the council said they wanted to go to the right of the continuum. I'm bringing you back to the continuum. We had 5, we were down to 3. We said it would be interesting, when possible, to go forward with more involvement from the community. So the participatory budget is an opportunity to do it. It's clearly what it is, and we take the public. There is a whole process. There's all kinds of parameters that surround that processes, but it's a process that had success in many cities around the world and also in different organizations. It's not only municipalities that take advantage of that process. So the concept is more than involving the people, committing the people in their community. They involve the people in the process of deciding the structure. How will it be done in Dieppe? We involve the people in the building of that program. What kind of project would be accepted? At what age do we accept the young people to vote? Municipalities, when up to 12 and 14, they want to involve youth. This is how the community can help them. So what is important here is that the process becomes as important as the result. They build a collective capacity and of belonging and pride of the people. So, but I want to say that we just joined a community development that is in strategic plan and the engagement of the public. As you can see here, with a promise, we are transparent at the very beginning. If we get involved in something like this, that we will put forward what the people have decided on. So here is only one preliminary step that I'm putting forward, is to help you to better understand what it can look in the city of Dieppe. We understand there's a bit of flexibility to this. This is a preliminary undertaking. One of the first things I propose, if you decide that yes, something we're interested, it's a concept we find interesting, I think it would take a public resolution that would say that from you. And then we would go to the community and we would go and consult them and we would say the council has an interest to go forward. Is that something of interest for you? Is it something that you're interested in? We can ask the kind of project, the kind of money that should be committed to it, what age group should be involved. We really have to go and see it. I talk about going door to door and go meet the community group, the different individuals, the leaders, the young people, to really get to know that would be part of phase one. It would be the second step. Once the people said, yes, we're interested, then we come back to the council after that in December with a report. Hey, this is what we heard. Yes, no, maybe, I don't know. I mean, then officially you can decide, must we go on or not. I like to believe that the community will accept something like that, but I think it would be interesting to see if there is interest because we don't necessarily talk about Chicago and New York or places like that, but there's other municipalities. So, for instance, the city of Basile in Dieppe are doing their process immediately. They will be voting next week. So, it's the first municipality in Canada that has adopted the participative budget for the municipality as a whole. Earlier, you saw in the video, we talked with Toronto and a few other places that did it, but it was for a specific sector. It was not for a municipality as a whole. So the first phase we propose, it's between now and December. There's the whole planning. This is where we will also recruit people from the community to have a steering committee that will help with the whole step. So at that time, the first step is very important to create what we call a rules and regulations to establish what kind of process we're talking about, what kind of projects are acceptable. In the second phase, it's really the more public phase, if you wish, the more official phase, and this is where we would receive the ideas, we generate ideas, and we work on project. Here, we propose from March to May, where people, whether they be individuals, organization, anyone who lives in Dieppe can propose some projects. To do it, we talk about opening, we're doing it, whether it's in writing, whether it's a media day, somebody wants to write a poem, draw a picture, electronically, we will take it and we want to receive all the ideas. From that, following this, some citizens will create some working group. That's where the working group will start. Once all those ideas have been put together, the working committee, comprised of citizens, will have to work and develop the ideas. I'll give you an example. If someone was saying we'd like to have more shelter, bus shelter, while the idea is more bus shelter, we have to define what we need. 4, 10, 20, and where would they be? What kind? Things like that. So there's a bit of work that has to be done. And when we come to develop the ideas of the project, the people, the staff, must be involved more because there may be ideas of project that are not acceptable. Maybe some ideas don't meet the rules and regulation in that second phase. This is where the main work is to be done. The community will take in hand the 40, 50, 100 ideas and will prioritize them. We'll reduce them to arrive at an acceptable time that would be the third phase number 3. So phase number 3 essentially is the presentation of the projects, and it's done in different ways. We can imagine and see that it's being done in festive events on Place 1604 with music, where we have exhibition. We already have seen the scientific exhibition with the children, and that's why they have they explain the projects and what they want to see and why. People can go and see that, and then there is also the voting booth. The people can go and vote either on paper, they can go and vote online. Some people can't move. Well, we would like to see the multimedia people who could watch a video on the internet to probably see the project that are being proposed and vote online. All of these are ideas, but I'm trying to show you the concrete of what it could look like. So that is phase number 3 and the presentation of the results. So the governing committee, the steering committee, that is working from the beginning would be responsible also to validate those results and to announce the results. Could be done at a council meeting or elsewhere. Like any steps, the evaluation part is really important. New initiative, yes, we will probably use successful story, but there's something we can learn. So phase number 4 is to think about what we've gone through and to say what worked well and what did not work well, so that if ever we decided to go on, we would be better ready, and to make sure that other municipalities or others may take advantage of us. We've had discussions preliminary discussions with researchers, because there's a whole element of research that can take this in account. They're interested to know when a municipality get involved, to ask questions. For instance, does the involvement in a participative budget really involve the citizens' commitment or engagement, should they? Does it favor the sense of belonging? But as far as research is concerned, does it really exist? We'd like to have a research facet in the phase of acting, when the project that are being chosen would be implemented the following year. So the processes that would end in 2015, only in 2016, that the project would be really realized. It may take 1 or 2 years to realize them. If we realize that sometimes we have to build or develop something, I don't know, but nevertheless, there is a plan of attack that starting in January 2016. Of course, the faster, the better. So what does this mean? What does it involve financially? In our estimate, I think with $50,000 in the 2015 capital budget, it will come to my sector with the staff that we have and with the community of volunteer. We'll put it forward. The only thing that there would be a possibility, if we had a research project, there might be a possibility of a student from the public administration level, but this could also involve to hire a consultant from the participative budget. They offer different service, and we would not bring them from far away. I think that the contribution is to have their feelings, their ideas, to build from what they know and to be able to exchange with them. But we have to say, I met the lady who did the process, Sabozel Lagara, and very good cooperation. So I think we can use her experience with $50,000, would use the possibility of hiring someone. And the whole process promotion, because it's a first, it's something that we'll have to do, and if we want to do things well as we are doing it, we need the resources. It's a discussions for later on, for another date. What does it mean in 2016? Figure that I'm throwing here for discussion purpose. It doesn't mean this is it, but I've put the figure at $225,000 from the capital budget. For reference purpose, Sabah was 17,000 population, did the process with $200,000. While said we like to do things well, we don't. If we went ahead with 25,000, maybe we would like to have a higher budget. Once again, this is a discussion with the council to give an idea of what is happening. We're not at the $1 million level that Chicago or $2 million that value is giving, but I think we need an amount that is important enough to incite the people to get involved, and we need an amount that is interesting enough for the community to really get involved. That is the real questions. Let's not hide ourselves. It's a new form of government. Until now, you have shown an open mind. You have confidence in the people that they will make a wise decision. You have an open mind. Essentially, what we're saying is that we are giving to the citizens in a structured the power of deciding where they will spend the amount of money that you will make available to them. The objective, as the lady said in the video, is a project that will have the more benefit for the greater number of citizens. I will conclude with the question of leadership. You've shown a lot of leadership since your election in 2012. It's an opportunity to show your peer that you want to have initiative. It's an opportunity to be unique in Dieppe. We would be the first municipality in Atlantic and second in Canada of putting forward a participative budget, but I think it's the accomplishment of an electoral promise that many of you have done when you talk about committing the population. If I can use Councillor Bilivo's comment in the presentation, he said it was a leg of the council for a generation to come. I leave you with the last reflection. Citizens are called to vote once every 4 years. But if we had people that would vote uh, on an annual basis to give part of the budget, would it bring the budget to vote more often? I don't know. I'm just throwing this out. I'm convinced that the initiative can make such that everybody would be winners, and I hope that we can go to the next level. I understand that it's a lot to, but I would be open to your question and comments if there's some. Thank you, Mr. Richard. Question, members of council, Mr. Godet. Last year, was it at this time that we did a survey of some kind? Went to the market, we went different places about the budget. Yes, we had the initiative of a free budget. Are we redoing it this year? No. Why not? Two reasons. One, we should have the results, the discussions on the results. We have to know if the objective of the budget was reached. The other reason is this initiative here. I privileged this one rather than the other one. The other one was a consultation. It's not the same thing, not at all, but it's close. It's related. It's the same issue of budget, but it's completely a different engagement process. As far as engagement is much wider, as far as engagement than the exercise from last year with the budget. That was a good educational exercise for the population. Yes, but the educational process, but a project like this requires a great effort of information to share with people. That's why it is spread over a much longer period of time. Mrs. Della, thank you, Your Worship. My question is similar to Councillor Godet, but different. Last year, I was disappointed by the lack of involvement by the population, but it's hard to go from zero to ask involvement to a large percentage of population. Maybe this is a step to overcome. If people can participate and see concrete money being invested in initiative that they will decide on, it will bring to a greater involvement to direct how we invest the majority of money of our initiative when they see concrete results in their commitment. This is the step that will bring us to something else. I'm proud to see that it's being presented to us tonight. Thank you. Councillor Beliveau. Thank you, Worship. I think my question is similar to the other two. To know if we're not going back with last year's exercise, will we lose a bit of momentum? Was there momentum? I know it was not much. If my memory served me right, there were hardly 200 answers given, of which we were able to retain their answer. But by not doing it, are we going to lose some of that momentum? The reason I'm bringing this up, some people ask me, are you going to do it again this year? I don't know if because they didn't want to do it. I'm not saying it's because they did it last year. Or are we preparing ourselves for showing us what the next step is? If we present it as such, by saying this is another step to use by getting where we would be in 2016. Some people think there will be 3,000, 4,000 people. If if we had doubled this year. If we had had 500 this year, it would have been we had 500 on 25,000 population. It's like Mr. Richard was saying. The difference is that there are concrete money. It will be committed with concrete project that should have an impact on whether it's Ward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or the city as a whole. Or I like to hope that it will interest the people more with the information that they will receive, with the help of the information that they will ask of the information. I think that the level of involvement, commitment, goes up by quite a few percentage. I think I was able to understand the answer to my question. I think the momentum is to reach that new step, not necessarily to do the survey like last year. I fully agree with the initiative, similar to Councillor Della. Thank you. Councillor Timothy, thank you, Your Worship. I have a few fears because the momentum is not only us, but it's the population of citizens that will want to participate in it. And I think it's a process that is long and a 1 year cycle between the projects. And I fear that the citizens find it a long time to see the result. I fully agree with the principle and the suggestion and the recommendation put forward. But I have that fear now. The other thing that will be difficult is that it will involve a lot of work for the staff and employees. We'll have to prepare a lot of documents because the people who will want to participate in it will have all kinds of questions to ask. We present a project, they will want to know how far it will go by increasing their tax, for instance. They will want to know, will it increase the tax by 1 cent, 2 cents? And in this case, there would not be any increase in taxes. What happens is that the council, put forward a certain amount, 200, 300, whatever it is, it's within that amount that will come out of the budget for 2016. That is decided at the outset. There's no increase in the tax rate, so we will not propose some option, for instance, on arenas. No, not unless you want to put millions on the table. But the idea here is the difference with the Dieppe budget. It was an initiative by the municipality. Here we want to do it. That's why the consultation that I'm talking about, we want the people of the community to take this in their own hand. We say, take it, become responsible, and that's where the steering committee, the leaders, and the people who will want to get involved will get involved and will bring together their people, and that's where we will test them. Is there an interest for that? And it will become a sustainable project for the citizen. Yes, there will be work required from our managers, and but I would say that it's not harder than when we have requests that come to us in October and September, and they ask us to turn around and not analyze it. So we give them 4 months, but before we get there, we'll make sure that every project, every ideas are meet the requirements that were established at the beginning. We'll make sure if somebody comes with a project of $500,000, there's only 200,000. So if the community, if you decide that it's only mobilization and there's no program or service, well then someone who is presenting one is not in it. They will reduce the list. They will prioritize these projects even before they bring it to management. Okay, I thought we were going to propose big project where we had decision to make. It's not us that the project come from the community, but what we're going to do is that in the education phase, we'll promote our secondary plan and the trail or recreation or so that people can understand there are things that are already planned. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Brito. Thank you, Your Worship. Somewhat like Councilor Thibodeau, fear. I like the concept and am ready to get involved, but I look further. It means that our commitment, we also will have to get involved. We as people to vote, but we will have to be ready to deliver the merchandise. But having said that, we were talking earlier about of last year's program of making people vote. It didn't work, or it did not give the results that we were expecting. And we ask you the question: are we going to repeat it? The answer is no. We're getting involved, something like this. We want to encourage people to participate. We want to grow it. We want the project to get bigger. But if it doesn't work, we're going to do the same thing. Are we going to come back next year? Are we going to ask ourselves, are we going on? That's my fear. That I assume that after having done the preparation and encourage people, it will work. If it doesn't work, what do we do? Will there be no follow-up or what? I'm optimistic, and I think this project is completely different than the other one the mayor said. So the engagement will show the results, results that will be quick, and the people will make up their mind, they'll follow their mind, and if it's not among the priority established by a number of citizens, in 6 months people can see that concretely they were able to have an impact completely different than the budget, the Dieppe budget, and so it's completely different. So I think that is where the main difference of that. I'm optimistic it can work because I have confidence that we have a dynamic community, community that get involved in such projects, and we will analyze it in November of next year. I fully agree with you because I see it in some communities where people that we go to sit with us, they really want to participate. They want to commit themselves. There's no doubt. I see there's potential in that project. I'll get involved. I think it's a good example with the committees. Part of my role is that I establish liaison with the 4 advisory committee that we have, and we have people who would get involved and do a lot more. Nothing stop the advisory committee on environment will propose some ideas and some projects, and the end of the line, the community will decide. And that's the beauty of all this. I can tell you that as far as participation and vote in some wards, some municipality, they had a greater number of voters and participatory budget than at the municipal election. The reason was simple. Not only did they see a concrete result, is that, for instance, if you take New York, some people cannot vote. Immigrants, people like that, but in such a process, they don't have those barriers. Whether you were in jail or not, you can still vote. Maybe it's with the voting age, 18. By reducing maybe to 16, you go and get a whole new group of young people. Anyway, trying to understand the question. Councillor Gadet.
How many answers did we receive last year? 176. And many said that it was very interesting. They wanted to do it again. There were more than 200 people that had gone on the website, and they took the 20 minutes or so to answer. inaudible, no mic. For the councillors, the only decision that we will have to take is if we're going ahead, what will be the amount of money? That's the only decision we have to make. After that, we give the power to our citizens. It's as simple as that. So are we ready to invest 200,000, 300,000, 400,000? Whatever the amount is, without increasing taxes, of course, to give to the residents the chance to get on board and to create something. You don't have to decide tonight. No, I know. But the idea is to have to give a summary to the council. I feel that there's a certain interest, but there are some fears as well. And what I wanted to propose is to give you a formal recommendation for the next meeting, a resolution saying that you support this, and then you can have deliberations. And at that time, you don't really have to determine the amount. We'll have our evaluations, analyses with our team, and with the residents. Before the end of November, we should be able to identify something to go ahead with. Councillor Leblanc, thank you, Your Worship. As for me, I find this project interesting. However, there are projects that we would have realized in any event. We'll have projects that we have had in our radar long term. They're not going to appear out of nowhere. That's possible, but I think there are going to be subjects that are already in the minds of councillors already. But I think it would be a good exercise to give the power to our residents to make decisions. And I'm ready to get on board with this. The other aspect is that the winning project, the others don't die either, because they can have a life with the municipal council, and they can suggest things that we would not have thought about. So there could be a genuine interest. I think we should consider all that. Thank you, Mr. Richard, for your presentation. Now we're going to talk about public transit. We're going to bring something forward on this next week as well. So here, the public transport, as you know, Route 93, since June, we're trying to find a win-win scenario. So what we've got at the time being this doesn't seem to work. Here we go. Why do we want to change? It's because some residents are using a 93 route on Champlain Road, and they would like it to come back at least to the end of Chartersville. We made changes with the one that's going at the end of Boulevard Dieppe, the shuttle. So here you see the route. Do you know this well enough? We have on Boulevard Dieppe from the co-op, there's the shuttle that goes to Lakeburn Lumber. And that's during rush hour. And our pilot project has extra hours during the evening and on weekends. So what we have the opportunity to do, as you know, we can only make changes 3 times a year. So starting December 14th, That would be the next changes with Kodiak Transpo, and they told us last Wednesday that the tests that they've been doing with the changes in the routes were possible within 30 minutes. So the route we're looking at now would be changed as you can see here. It would stay on Champlain, it would turn right on Lorette and Chartersville and come back on the route to Champlain Place. So here, what we're saying, we're not going to change the present route with the shuttle 4 to 6 p.m. That would stay the same because a lot of workers use it. We presume, and they tell us that a lot of people use the system in the industrial park. That's why the bus right now is making a detour on Dawson and de la Savoie. So that's why we're there at the time being. So, and fewer people use the bus on Lakeburn. So that's why the shuttle, up to now, the 6-passenger van has done the work very well up until now. But the people that live there during the day, they have a shuttle service when they ask for it, but they would rather have one that's automatic. There's a certain need there. So is there a middle point that we could reach without affecting people that are working? So Kodiak Transpo says that if it's within the 30-minute norm, it would work. So here, we want the possibility to make these changes starting on December 14th, and so that the shuttle wouldn't be available anymore outside from rush hours during the week. So there would be an impact on certain people. Friday, I was told that the driver of the shuttle has more students for the Moncton Flight College. And those people would have to walk farther. Some people had the bus going closer, and now they'll have to walk farther to get the bus. So this is a choice with respect to the service. So tonight, we must decide. Moncton and Kodiak wants to know if we want to go ahead. We're not usually concerned with these changes to the routes, but each time we make changes, and we've done very good changes, but in the future it could advantage some people, but it could be a problem for others. And when we started talking about this since June, other users haven't used it that we haven't consulted yet. So I'm saying to myself, I would like to go ahead to satisfy the people that have asked us, but perhaps we should wait and consult the users or the riders before making changes, and we could wait until April. And soon we're starting to look at the winter. People, it's colder out, people want to walk less. So that's why I'm talking about it tonight. I want to see what your opinions are. People will be calling you. I want to know what your feelings are. Would you rather go make these modifications, changes before the 14th or later in April? Councillor Dallaire. I have some difficulties with these changes. We've tested it and we could get there within 15 minutes, but what about winter when there's snow plowing? Will there be extra problems with transfers? That's a bit harder for riders. If, like, you're trying to get a next bus and you have to wait for your transfer a half hour, that's difficult. I know some riders have said, are you going to stop making changes because they're getting mixed up? We have something here, we're trying to learn how to use it, and then we change it. So I'm worried about this. Some hours during the day, it's one route, other hours, it's another route. I would like to keep the same route because once you've learned where it goes, you know what it's going to do and where it's going to go. I know we have a service that's not ideal for all riders, but it's an improvement to what was there before. Personally, I would rather maintain the route as it is. The status quo, of course, is a better service than what we had before, but some people don't want to take the shuttle. At times, sometimes they have to call, they want it automatic. I agree with Councillor Dallaire. Some people say that our service, the status quo, is better. And I think it makes sense to stay with what we have. If we change it for a few questions from the citizens, I think we should evaluate them more closely. I think we should perhaps analyze it further. And maybe we could have the shuttle take these people to the bus. I think it's a good service, and I'm sure that the shuttle goes to the residents. I think there's a route, but a lot of times he'll go pick up the people at their house. So it would be closer for those people than the bus route. But the people will have to go to the point of Chartersville and Lorette. That's where the bus is going to go. If it's farther than that, during the morning, afternoon, evening, and weekends, they'll have to go there. Now they have to go to the co-op. I think we should keep the status quo and think about it some more. Councillor Leblanc, thank you, Your Worship. If you look at the route of 93, it goes to Champlain, Dawson, Boulevard Dieppe, to Chartersville, then Pascal, and go back to Champlain. What is proposed before us tonight is the bus goes on Champlain to Lorette, then Chartersville, and he'll either miss Boulevard Dieppe or Pascal. He can't do both. So there has to be a change. Yes, he'll have to miss Dieppe Boulevard, but if it goes on Aviation and Chartersville, it's about 500 meters from everybody, so you still maintain the 500-meter walk within the triangle of Pascal and Chartersville and Dieppe Boulevard. So we would go up Pascal. So all we're eliminating is Dawson, de la Savoie, and Dieppe Boulevard. So to go to the co-op, so there wouldn't be a shuttle anymore to go to the co-op. So as it was mentioned, it's a little bit confusing. You're looking at a schedule and you don't know what time to take the bus and how to get there. So you really have to organize yourself. Say, okay, I'm going to leave at 8 o'clock and I have to be such a thing, and to come back I have to do something else. Personally, I don't think it's a good idea. Any additional comments? Councillor Béliveau, I just wanted to know how many people have made the request. 10, 50? We have received a request for how many people? 2 people are very strong on this subject. And perhaps about a dozen people came to the consultations and wanted to come back. 10 or 12, a dozen, I guess. They want the bus to come back even though there's a shuttle service. They want the big bus instead of the little one, yes. And that's mostly because they're at the Lakeburn area, so to walk to the corner of those 3 streets is not as bad. But there are people that living farther away, maybe not many, that don't really know what to do. So perhaps we should consult them so that they know. So in reality, you're going to lose a certain level of service, yes, and municipality will save money, but you're also losing some services, and do people understand that? I'm not really convinced. Councillor Godet, do we have the numbers for de la Savoie and Dawson? Is that a popular route? We started getting these numbers last Thursday. We're analyzing them. We received a report from the automatic counters, so we're going through those. So right now, you have no idea how many riders there are? That's the other reason that tells me that we should go through analysis before making any changes. Like we started talking about that in June, making these changes, and we wanted to we were supposed to get the reports, and now we're October and we finally received them. Each time you change the route, the riders have a problem of identifying which route, and if you change it twice a day, then it's not positive. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. I understood that between 9 and 4 p.m. there's no shuttle. The shuttle, the bus only goes to Dieppe Boulevard, not any farther. But the rest of the time, what is proposed is that the bus would go to Champlain, Lorette, and Chartersville, so there would not be any shuttle for those people who live any farther. I think the service that we offer right now is better, so I think we should keep the status quo. At least until we get more facts, another analysis. So it's not the objective for this meeting to make a decision. I think our agenda is finished, so I wish everyone a good evening.